Dan Houston.
Yes.
The clubs who want him, they're going to have to get very clever.
I think it's a fascinating situation, and in particular, sort of taking into account the amount of power that players have in the current AFL landscape. So as we know, Ralph, you reported this, Carlton are an interested party in Dan Houston. They know about that. But St Kilda is going to have the more attractive pick for Port Adelaide. If they get their pick 8 for Josh Battle as part of that free agency compensation, we're going to have a situation where Houston wants to go to Carlton, but the better deal is at St Kilda. Now, is this a situation where Dan has just got to get his head around, OK, yes, the trade request, you can go home to Victoria, but you might not get your particular club? Because we've seen over the past few years, I'm going to Brisbane, I'm going to Carlton, I'm going to St Kilda, and the clubs have been powerless. Is this a deal where we can find some more middle ground, where the Saints can actually emerge victorious, Houston gets back to his home state, and Power are happy because they get a better pick? Is that where there can be some more
I think having a second option that's not unrealistic, like it's not, no disrespect to North Melbourne, it's not North Melbourne and Carlton, it's St Kilda on the rise that he has a relationship with Jack Sinclair. So if it's two almost equal options, I think you can play that game.
Here's why Paul Connors is so good. We're talking about the Chris Judd deal. He doesn't get players to a place where they'd like to go. He gets them to a place where he believes they can go. Chris Judd wanted to go to Collingwood, but Carlton had the early picks there, and so they were able to get that deal done. And so I think in this situation, Dan Houston would love to go home. He's got a new girlfriend who is Victorian. She's got some links to St Kilda, or the Silvani family there. That's a great reason to come home. It's not a great reason to say, I must play at this club. So Port Adelaide, go and get the best deal for your player. A dual All-Australian in the peak of his career who could turn Carlton into an absolute elite defence.
St Kilda, not a bad selling point because they lose Battle but get not a bad replacement, an A-grade replacement. In particular, that ball moving off half-back, Sinclair, Nasai, Wanganeen, Malira, Ari Showan, Maker, that's some elite disposal across half-back. Where does it sit with Carlton? Because they want to keep their first-round pick in this year's draft. How does their future first come into it, Ralphie?
So certainly they believe that there are clubs out there like Richmond, maybe Gold Coast and Brisbane who have academy picks, or Richmond who'd like to split multiple picks over 2 years. They believe they can get that first rounder in and then potentially take their current first round of the draft, then go Dan Houston, then go the Camporelli brothers. Interesting with their injury toll. Now, it's affected their salary cap. They don't want to keep paying C-graders because all of a sudden they might have to use them because they've got 20 blokes on their injury list. So, obviously, Rob Ennis is coming in, the Sydney fitness boss. They've had to keep players like Marchbank and David Cunnington and all that Cunningham and those blokes because they've tended to need them. So I think what they'd love to do is get their fitness toll right. And then if you look at the players who they currently have out of contract, there's 7 or 8 of them there. I think most of them are in trouble. So Carroll and Owies are the 2 you'd keep. When you bring in the kids, then you bring in the kids. You're paying for your stars and then you're bringing in the kids.
What about Martin?
Don't waste $1 million on playing C-graders. Well, Martin's played 3 games this season. He broke down in 2 of them. Fremantle has had a medical with him. Carlton's not sure what's going to happen there, but the exit meetings are tomorrow to Friday. So I would imagine that Jack Martin will be elsewhere. I mean, again, you're paying $300,000 next year in match payments. If he plays no games, you're just wasting a chunk of your cap.
Ralphie, Matt Owies, he's the one who surely gets a contract.
So 27 goals last year, 33 this year. He's a bit slow at times, but I would be giving him a contract for sure.
He's been the standout on that list, no doubt as well.
So what about contracted players, Scotty? Is there anyone that's there, the sort of Zach Williams type that you think, I'm not sure about that?
Adam Cerra is 3 years at Carlton. Has he achieved what they thought he would? Yes, we know about the injuries. I think he's one to watch in this whole scenario. When the Christian Petracca move was floated, someone high up said to me, Carlton could get this done with Adam Cerra. Think about it. And I was like, oh, hang on. Yeah, he might need a fresh start.
Kicked on?
I don't think
he's delivered?
Not at all. I don't think he's delivered anywhere near the promise the Blues were sold. He could still. Yes, he had a horrible run with the injury and the Blues are looking into that. But he was a name that was floated. Maybe could it come out in the next month?
He's done 5 hammies in 12 months, and that's basically because they give him 1 week off and they bring him back in. He was 4th in the best and fairest last year. I'm not sure he's a superstar, but if I was Adam Cerra, I would say right now the injuries have failed me. And I think everyone at Carlton is looking inwards and saying, how can we get a beat on anyone or how good our coach is or development is when we can't keep our players on the park.
And to your point, played half-back in rounds 19 and 20. Outside the midfield mix.
Well, they don't like that.
They do not like that, Bailey Smith style.
Now Melbourne, they've got plenty on their plate, Jay.
Interesting, isn't it?
Gary Pert's got a bit on his
He
plate.
certainly does. He's avoided the blowtorch so far. So there's 2 reviews going on at Melbourne at the moment. One,
He's in charge of both of them.
Footy, Brad Green and Darren Shan, the All Blacks guru, is reviewing the football department. But there is also a review going on of the board following Kate Roffey's departure. Melbourne have confirmed today that an external consultant will review the board and the board dealings. But it does really feel like Gary Pert is the blind spot in the scrutiny.
How do they move him on? Question
so
without
far.
notice. How do they move him on when he's literally on both of those reviews?
Well, difficult. And to add to that, your point here, Ralphie, he is also leading the work on the new facility. Now, Purdy was essentially brought to Melbourne. This was his number one objective, off-field objective. Bring the football department and the club's administration under one roof because they've been separated, Amy Park and the MCG. So they've identified the site and been working for years on the Caulfield Racecourse inside there. Now, if Purdy gets turfed, then that whole thing could it fall over? That's been the question that's been raised. So he's been leading that very crucial piece of work, and potentially they could secure a lot of funding for it within the next 8 months to get it up within the next 2 or 3 years. So I think Gary, who's been leading this crucial facility work, is very important to that, and potentially Melbourne have some concerns that if he was to move on, then does that whole project fall over? I think that is an important piece of information in this whole situation.
I should clarify. So there is a board review. He's not part of that. He's part of the football review. They put out a missive today that said there might be some negative stuff in the review, but we think there'll be lots of very, very positive stuff and we're fantastic and everything's going to be great. When you have a review, you keep an open mind because there might be hidden grenades. There might be horrible things
I think
there.
there's plenty down there.
They are conditioning those fans for very little to change.
Certainly a big year coming up for the Demons, no doubt about that.